For those of you that are about my age or older, you remember this as a board game. Apparently this is now an EA Sports game. So obviously times have changed. And as would be expected with any type of celebratory presentation, I'm going to speak about the very logical thing of tragedies. Not just one, but two. And what makes these very tragic things is they apply to every single one of us, without exception. Tragedy one, we're all going to die. All right, so there's the buzzkill. We start off on a somber note, so it's all up from here. Tragedy two, and probably the bigger one, because we control this, is that we're all going to die without even coming close to fulfilling our potential. Not even close. So I put some pictures on this next slide. The top two, I've always been amazed. I'm the furthest thing from the gymnast, but when you'll see the Olympics and you see a gymnast, how many of you ever said to yourself, how do they do that? It's just an amazing thing, the limitations, the things that people can do when they set their mind to it. Or the X Games, I love watching the X Games. You see the guy do 17 somersaults on a snowmobile. It's like, how do you ever get to that? They set goals, and they didn't take a moment off. They probably set those goals at a very young age. But being on the moon, this didn't just happen by accident. People decided that they wanted to live to their potential, and it's an amazing thing. So what does that all mean? So now we're going to transition to a physics test. So I'm officially off to the start for the worst presentation of all time. Talk about tragedies, and now I'm going to give the crowd a physics test. 3 simple questions, and the parents have to answer. The kids can't because they're far too smart for this type of stuff. So question 1, an object in motion does what? That's bright people. It tends to stay in motion. So you see a young lady jogging, she's in motion. And obviously, hopefully you'll see some metaphorical theme here. So question 2, an object at rest. Stay at rest. Now look at this guy. He's at rest. Now, would you all agree that we as human beings are objects? We certainly are. So there's absolutely a theme. Question 3, to move an object, apply what? Force. So apply force. So this picture, I love this picture, because we've got a child in a wagon and there's force being applied. But not just the typical of the pulling of the wagon, but there's also a push. This is a very important distinction, because the push in life is typically some person, a parent, a coach, a mentor, some individual who has a vested interest in getting that wagon to move from one place to another. The child up front, he represents the pull, and that's what I refer to as goal setting. And it's a very important thing. So let's talk about how we accomplish. A lot of times people don't think about this. If you ask any person who's successful, and you ask them how they got to be where they're at, they might not even know. But there's always a very consistent pattern, at least in the people that I've gotten to know that I would consider successful. So the push of a coach can provide some very basic things. Balance, direction, and propulsion. How many of you parents have done this with your child at some point in time? Talk about a ride bike. And you're running alongside and you're providing those very important things. Balance, direction, and propulsion. But if you think about it, as we're children, and as we go through our lives, everything is a push. It's do your homework, it's go to bed, it's brush your teeth. You know, if you ask any 4-year-old, hey, for the next 13 years, you're going to go through this process to graduate from high school, kindergarten, grade school, middle school, and high school, what do you think? They're all going to say no. So you push them. They don't have a choice. And that's how we learn. We do things because we're forced to. That's the push. And then at some point, for some people, and I guarantee a lot of the young adults in this room this applies to, is the pull. We pull ourselves by setting goals. And you need 2 key things to complete a map quest. You need where you are and where you want to go. And without one or the other, it doesn't know what to do. So A is here, wherever you are in your life, and where do you want to go? That place I'd like to be. It could be anywhere. You have to define it. You could define it for your entire life. You could define it for a 2-year window. You could define it for a 1-month window. And you got to click and get the directions. And I tell people all the time, set goals, write them down, and hold yourself accountable to it. And if you have somebody pushing you, they'll help hold you accountable as well. So I'm going to give you what I would consider 3 tips that I try to give to people when asked. 1 is to stay in your running lane. So if you ran track, or even if you didn't run track, this makes sense. You've got a lane, very specific lane. So if in this picture you're in lane 3, you're at a starting point and you've got a goal. So box A is the starting point, box B is the finish line. And you'd like to get there as quick as is humanly possible. And in a very logical sense, you don't care what's going on in lane 2 or lane 4 or lane 5 or lane 1. You just focus on yourself and your goal. And in life, and for a lot of you adults, probably a lot of you young adults as well, you'll notice that A lot of times it's keeping up with the Joneses. It's who's got the bigger car, who's got the nicer house, who's your hater, who's your friend, what's being said on Facebook, what's being tweeted about you, what's not being tweeted about you. White noise, non-value added. So if you go back to the math question, think about your box A and your box B. Getting caught up in the other running lanes does not ever fall in any of the step-by-step, turn-by-turn on how to get to a goal. Tip number 2, make no excuses. How many of you know who Jessica Cox is? Jessica Cox. She was a girl that was born in 1983 with no arms. She's 31 years old right now. She can legally drive a car. She's a black belt in Taekwondo. And she's also the only person born with no arms who is a licensed pilot. I've never met this young woman, but I guarantee you she did not make an excuse. Because she had plenty of them, or at least one really good one. And she decided to overcome. She decided to live to her potential. Tip 3, leave your fingerprint on the planet and prove that you were here. So this might be a little deep for some of you that are in high school. But as I've gotten older in my life and I think about legacy and how I want to be remembered, I would like there to be proof that I was here. Not just in material things, because that doesn't count. You leave those behind. In relationships you forged, and people you've mentored, and children you've brought into the earth, and maybe the children they bring into the earth. Leave proof that you were here. Do something meaningful. Define what you want to do, where you want to be. And maybe for some of you it's a retirement home, for some of you it's mentoring your grandchildren, for some of you it's going to the casino. Whatever it might be, have a goal. Write it down and share it with somebody. Live to your potential. Whatever that might be, everybody's got a different definition. I've got 4 daughters. I never thought any time in my life I would have 4 daughters. I grew up with 4 older sisters too, so God's got a place reserved for me. I trust Him. So my potential has been redefined by circumstances that I am now. I've got 4 daughters and other things that I'm trying to manage. So I try to redefine that. You need to define what your potential is as well. Now to the parents. Keep your hand on their back. You taught them how to ride a bike at age 2, 3, 4, whatever age it was. And you are a big reason why your kids are where they are today. And don't discount that. And children, don't discount the influence your parents have had. Your parents pushed you to the point, and at some point you started pulling yourself. And good for you, because that transition for you has already taken place. Parents, be prepared for the fact that they might just take off on their own. You'll be running with your hand out and nobody's there. Thank you.